Hello, beautiful family. I know there's a delay in my communication compared to normal, but just life is a little bit hectic. It would be easy to see my other videos when I'm not in action of manifesting and building and creating change, to think that I just sit in stillness and presence all the time and this is the end goal. And it is the end goal, but sometimes that presence leads to manifestation. It leads to a time of action. And the presence is the guide. The presence is the decision maker. The stillness, the light of silence. It is that which leads you to these things. It's like this. If you take 5 people who are Christian, and they all have different Christian sects, Protestant, Catholic, Lutheran, and God's love falls upon them and says, walk 10 kilometers that way, and there's a family. And when you get there, between you, each of you will carry something that will end the suffering of that family. You will carry materials, you will carry medicine, you will carry food, you will carry building tools, and you will carry the spiritual comfort, emotional comfort. And they set off walking, and God's love has come through them, because God's love is undefinable. There's no concepts, labels, images, symbols. It's undefinable. But when it's experienced in the entirety by the human vehicle, then it's unmistakable. And so God's love comes through all 5 and says, go and do this. And they set off. Now, if they stay registered with God's love in that journey, and their minds remain still, their symbols, their imagery that they use to try and decipher this experience of God's love that we all can have, if they continue in silence, they will reach the destination and help the person. If, however, they begin to argue theology, and they are not staying rooted in God's love and forgiveness, which is found in the presence, away from the mind, away from the mental images, away from any way that we try to define God, any symbol, any religious notion, spiritual notion, any label, any image that you try to define God with. Away from there is stillness and the experience of that timeless presence. But when you start arguing, you start adding those symbols in, separation occurs. You can see it. There's a unified state with God's love, and then we start adding the symbols, and with symbols come separation and conflict. And so eventually, if persons cannot stay rooted in that love as the dominant force, and they allow the mind and its concepts to become the dominant force, they will start to argue. Mine is correct, yours is wrong, mine is... And eventually, their human emotion will get involved. And when their human emotion gets involved, they'll then start defending the inner separate mental identity, because they've made themselves smaller than a vessel of God's love. They've made themselves a character inside that loves God now. And that character is now vulnerable because it's not the expanse of the experience of God's love. And so as they argue and they bicker, one will peel off. And the family that God asked them to go and help will not get the help. Look at it yourself. Look at it. What is the cause of division? What is the cause of us building the end of suffering, building the righteous world where people are cared for and loved and nurtured as Christ asked you, as all of the greats asked? What stops us is conflict and division. And conflict and division is born by thought. And it's born from labels and symbols because it creates separation. And so we must stay in that light of silence. And it's not that you stay quiet and never speak. It's that it is the dominant rooting of what you are. And so when debates arise, you are able to rest in that love and say, this is not what God wants. God does not want us tangled up in our mental identities of you're hurting me and I want this, I want this. God wants us to be in that love and presence together and surrendered to his will. And his will has been made clear in theology, in written word. It's been made clear in religion. But persons struggle to live it because it hasn't yet been made clear inside them. And it hasn't been made clear inside them because we build new mental characters around religion. And so when you build the mental character, you separate from the peace that is that state, the unified human with spirit. No name. If you are born again, you can't take your name with you. You can't take your nationality, you can't take your education, you can't take even your symbols, your mind, your symbols. Anything leading up to that point of rebirth, it all falls away and you are born fresh, new like a child.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. What you'll find when you look into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin.
If the labels, there's an animal here, and I don't know what it is, and I'm in Tanzania. Maybe just a bird. Can't be too careful. Can't be too careful. Not far from here, someone was just killed by a leopard. So, in a town as well. Not this is not where I was sitting. Not far from here, someone was just killed by a leopard in a town. So, gotta be wise. Does not matter what form the ego takes. Doesn't matter if it's built around loving God for the whole of your life. So long as you've clung to an image inside your mind of who you are going to wrestle with pride, with separation, and with conflict and division. Because as those five walking with God's love in their heart continue to use the symbology in them to feel they are right, they descend away from that expansive love into the inner character. And the inner character is emotional and unstable and double-minded. And so I've seen it. I've watched it. And I have great love for those who are in it, because I've been there myself and I know the drive behind it is a love of God. Just they got tripped up inside the maze of the mind Just as the Greeks depicted it with the Minotaur in the maze. It's a good image. The maze of the mind, and the Minotaur is hunting you down in there. The reality is you can get out of that maze by, here I am. There's no concepts, there's no labels, there's no human language, there's no memories. It's just right here, right now, and what I can do from here on. There, you will find the will of God can work through you. In an instant, it can work through you. Because you no longer need to process, what would God want me to do? It just comes through as a force and you know it. You just know it. You know that presence. You know that vibrance. You know that vitality. And when you fall away from it into the mind, you know that too. Vibration. It's a great compass to keep you in that narrow way. And when you slow down enough your mind so that you live dominantly in the presence of God, you will find yourself in that narrow way, and it will feel so good that when you stray out, you will be aware, I'm out of it. How do I get back in now? And the funny thing is, when you ask that, how do I get back in? The one asking is the one who brings you out of it. And so to get back in, the asking must stop. The trying must stop. And when that happens, the character fades into a mist, and from that mist arises the will of unconditional love and the vitality and vibrance of present moment awareness, and you begin your journey. You begin your journey as the wind is having its journey. The wind does not grab with its own mental identity and say, I'm not going to go through that way, I'm going to go this way. It just goes. And so too can we. Once we realize that we are part of that. Part of the forest, part of the wind, part of the cosmos. A doing. And in the stillness, in the light of silence, the doing is very loud. And it carries you. Its will comes through. But when you try to control it and dissect it, and the intellect steps in that way, we lose track. We lose track and we butcher the planet. We butcher it to try and find our way home. And the only butcher that's needed, to use a strong word, is the light of silence. Because it will be the demise of the inner mental character and the return to what you are, a human that the will of spirit can work through. I love you all. God bless, guys. Bye. I love this place.